Hey, let's talk about SwiftUI, file documents, cascading styles and generics in CueCam Devlog number 3. So I'm going to try and explain some stuff I did today, so let's see if I see how this goes. So firstly, what am I talking about with cascading styles? So this is what I'm talking about. CueCam lets you customize your design system with a few key settings. So you can choose a preset up here, which controls the sort of general transitions and backgrounds and things. And you can also set the background color, you can set a font, you can set like the spacing, light text, dark text, and like transition time. So that's in the document tab. So that's for the document, but you can also customize it per card. It's inherited from the doc by default. And so when you change, so as soon as you like touch one of these, it's going to like, the card is going to get a copy of that design system. So yes, that just means it gets a copy of every single value. I know that's maybe a little heavy-handed. It's not exactly CSS, but it's fine for now. So yeah, as soon as you click something here, I click blue. So now there it is with its whole copy, and you've got this option to just like reset it back to the document design if you want. So let's talk about how that all works with file document now. CueCam works with the SwiftUI FileDocument system. All you really need to know here is this this doc view wrapper part, and then just basically takes a file, and that sort of lives under document group new document, right? So so that's kind of how SwiftUI does the document stuff. It's still a beat sheet doc because that's where all this stuff was born. They're technically still compatible, although like these files won't do much in beat sheet anymore. So an issue I often have with this file document is that when I make a change to the document model, it's not just the file document, it would be any document, but if I just want to edit, say, the slide layout, I just, I create a picker with a binding to the slide layout, and I sort of tag my valid cases. This should have a tag actually. I sort of simplified an example for you, but yeah, basically I'm sort of binding it to the layout, but it doesn't actually mark the file as needing to be saved. And I've had that come through as a bug a couple of times. Oh, I changed this and then it didn't save it. So how do we make this work? Well, it all comes down to UndoManager. So once we register something with the UndoManager, then the file, file document knows that the thing needs to be saved, and so that basically means it's sort of you're going to get this edited in the top bar, and that then works with autosave and just makes everything work. So you're not going to kind of like lose any data. And this is in case you're kind of wondering, this is sort of where all the, if we just reset the zoom there, you can see like there's the design system, and then we've got our two little we've got our sort of card tab and our doc tab in the file window. So UndoManager can be a bit cumbersome because you sort of like register and undo, and then you've got to register a redo, and like it gets a bit messy. But I found this approach on Matthaus Woolard's blog. And what he did was just gave you this like UndoProvider wrapper that you can stick around anything that you're editing. So there's some generic gymnastics going on in there, but more on that in a moment. So now I can just do like UndoProvider, give it that, and then it gives me the binding that I can then use for my selection. And yeah, again, this would say tag for a picker to work. And so that means anytime I have something that wants to be edited, I wrap it in this UndoProvider, and then I kind of know that all that stuff's going to work and it's going to get saved properly. But a problem I had today. So that's the document, file document part. So now let's talk about the next thing, which is, I had a problem, which was that the card and document design system was a bit awkward. It was a bit slapdash. So I'd brought in the font sizes long before I had the concept of a design system, back when this was still beat sheet. So some things were only editable per card, some only per doc. And I just wanted to bring everything under that design system model. So here's kind of what the document tab looked like. You can see it's in the diff, that's why the shades are a bit different. But this is what it looked like on the document tab. So here I'm just sort of like, I'm passing in three properties, three bindings, to this design system picker, and then I'm sort of like, because it's kind of like nested and level, and document isn't like published or observable object or anything, but config is, and I just sort of had this awkward thing. So that's how it looked in the doc tab, but then in the slide tab it got really complicated, because it's like, okay, if you know, this is to pick the design, but to pick the color, I'm sort of going, okay, to get it, either try the card, then try the document, and then when we set it, if the card doesn't have a design, or it's the same, then just like assign it to this is the important part, the duplicated thing. So we're actually going to duplicate the design system there. Same thing happens here for the transition duration. I'd like done some copy paste here, which I never like to do, especially there's 3 things here. So it was definitely too many to be sort of doing that. But it was giving me a bit of a headache, like how am I actually going to refactor this so that I can sort of wrap all that logic? And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So here's what it looks like now. I just go design system picker, I give it the 2 things it might need, the doc config and the slide config. So now, you know, only the card editor actually gets a slide, and the doc one just doesn't get a slide passed in. So that just means we've got instead of this nightmare and this nightmare, like it's instantiated like this, and inside that kind of wraps up all that kind of cascading. Do I need to create a new one? So we'll see how this works now. So this is how we use it. So it's like UndoProvider. So UndoProvider lets you do a thing and you get a binding. This basically kind of does a similar thing. I give it the config, I give it the slide, and I give it a key path to the property that's going to be edited. And then I can just like use that in my you know, selection binding and just tag the things I want. So you can see that's going to be a much more comfortable, much less error prone. So this is what the design UndoProvider actually looks like. So let's have a look here. So we've got sort of 4, it's got 4 properties basically. We've got the document config. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom. Sorry. We've got the doc config, we've got the optional slide, we've got the key path, and we've got the wrapped view. And the slide is optional, but it does need to be passed in, so that's why I've got an explicit initializer. The design system picker doesn't. The design system editor doesn't need the slide, but the UndoProvider does, because it needs to know whether or not it's actually going to have to kind of update the slide. So then we have this, well, let me sort of, yeah, so we're, sorry, it's so hard to explain this. So we see these generics for the, wrap view, and this is basically proxying down into the UndoProvider here. So the UndoProvider implementation needs to know what the view type is as a generic when it's created. So all what we're doing here is just kind of passing UndoProvider a binding and giving it that wrapped view. And then the special stuff we're doing all sits in here. So basically, you know, when we change the value, here's that, well, first let's look at this. So when we change the value, this is the binding that's going to the UndoProvider, right? So it grabs whatever makes more sense, either the slide design or the document thing, by the key path, right? But when it's set, so you go set value in, and so when whatever like is being sent back to that binding comes through as a value, and then now we decide what to do with that value based on the key path and, you know, whether or not we've got a slide. So if there's a slide and it's got no design, then we do that whole duplicated thing here just once, right? And then we just assign it by the key path, and just note that that key path is also a generic of slide design value, and it has to be a writable key path in order for us to be able to assign something here. And then I just kind of set that slide design to the slide design. If we don't have a slide, then or the slide already has a design, then we just you know, set that like that. So this is, we've got quite a lot of juggling going on, but this was the solution to that problem of duplicating that kind of like duplication code over and over again. So, I hope this records. So here's the design picker now. This is the whole thing, more or less. So what you see is it's like the first thing actually is the sort of template thing. So we do need to sort of assign the preset based on what's there. But everything else is now wrapped in these design UndoProvider things. So here's the light text, dark text. Here's the transition time. So I've just got the implementation. I'm doing this key path thing, transition duration, that goes in there. Here's a glimpse of what that SlideFontPicker looks like. It's its own view because it asynchronously loads the font list in and stuff. But you'll see down here, same thing, design UndoProvider, and it just grabs the binding and like updates that binding wrap value to do things. And color picker was a bit of a pain, as I had to, so I'm sort of juggling NS colors, Swift colors, and then like my own wrapper around color. So I had to make this sort of awkward wrapper to make it codable. If anyone knows an easier way to make colors codable, please tell me. But basically it sort of comes down to like this sort of using color space sRGB stuff. Kind of just needs to be wrapped. So the design UndoProvider is wrapped around the color picker, and then the color picker has either this sort of like H stack. This is the colors that I've kind of preset, and then we've got the system color picker that gives you back this binding NS color. Well, this is the system color picker that I think. I think it uses an NS color. Anyway, so you can see like there's quite a lot of stuff wrapped up, but at least I'm not kind of duplicating that slide duplicating code. And just to show you what that looks like, I'll just do a quick new document. I shall bring it over here, and I shall come into demo mode, which hopefully you can see. So now if I put a slide on, hello, right, we can see in the doc. If we kind of change, we wouldn't want to do that. We can change the background color. We can, pick something with this, with the color picker that's over here. We can sort of like change we can kind of change the colors there. And so say we wanted it to be pink, but say we wanted a new slide and we wanted that to be blue, please. Let's make this nice and big. Let's make it a bit bigger. So let's say we wanted that to be blue just for this card. We can click down blue down here. That's going to be blue. We can make the font bigger. If this is the first time for CueCam, we can sort of say light text, dark text, and we can change the font here to some random thing. Come back up here, it's the normal font. Come here, it's there. If we kind of change the document style here, it's only going to affect the ones there, and then we can sort of control all the fonts and stuff. So that is the new, sorry, I'm just trying to find my document again. That's the new stuff. Subscribe for more devlogs like this, and feel free to give CueCam a go at cuecam.app, and I'll hopefully see you in, next week, the start of next week. Cheers.